This is Tony Dolan from Venom Inc, and you're listening to The Dan Chan Show.
I'm joined by the legend that is Tony Demolition Man Dolan. How's things, mate?
Hey, very good. It's good to talk to you there in lovely Barcelona from very sunny, lovely England in London.
There you go. We've both got it. We've both got it.
Yeah, and well, we deserve it. We deserve it.
We do indeed. Now, first off, congrats on the new single, How Many Can Die. Is it good to have new music out?
You know, it really, really is. I mean, thank you so much. It's 2019, we did our final season, closing with Wacken, a performance at Wacken, headlining the original main stage. And then the plan was I was going to have my hip replaced. And when I was recovering, I would then go to Portugal, where Mantis lives in Tomar there. Yeah. And we would just finish the new album, work on the new album, have it finished. 2020, we would have it out and be straight into touring by the February, the March. And 2 years later, a plague across the planet, we were like, what the fuck?
You kind of answered one of my questions already. I was going to say, we'll get into that, because I was going to say that the album is There's Only Black, and it's out on the 23rd of September. Now, first off, before we get into the nuts and bolts, what can we expect from this album?
I think you can expect, a step up from Arvia.
Which was a great album.
Thank you so much. I pushed so hard against doing that album because it was John Zazula and Chuck Billy. John Zazula in particular, bless his soul, who's gone now from Megaforce, an old friend who were, pushing to go towards an album. And I just thought, when we were playing live with Abaddon and Mantis, it was one kind of fine thing. We were just playing legacy stuff. From our own musical histories. But once you go into an album, you got publishing, then you got record deals, you got to find the deals, you get let down and you get turned away, and then there's all the politics of the money. And I just thought, at our age, we should keep it simple. We go play, we get paid, we split the money, we go home, we do it again. And the fans are happy and we're happy, and there's nothing in the way. So I really railed against it, but John Zazula in the end convinced me to go for it. So we did 3 tracks as demos, myself and Mantis, and then we passed it to Nuclear Blast, who was my go-to label if I was going to pick one. Yeah, and they loved it and went to do the album. So, we just put what we were, what we felt we were from live performance and how we were as the musicians we are now into that record. It was very an honest record, but produced by Mantis, so he just got to do whatever he wants to do on it. And I think what we always try to be better than the last thing we did, particularly me and Jeff. So if we do a good performance, but we note the mistakes we make, the next time they're not there. And we keep trying to improve ourselves always, so that each audience gets a better version of the one we just did. Yeah. And we did the same with the record. We wanted to just put fury into it, the fury that we have, from our lives. Mantis had died, so he didn't see anything there. So he came out of it going, when he was brought back to life, he was like, there's nothing. It's fuck all. There's no heaven. There's no hell. It's just black. And, that just set me thinking, the theme for the album. And then when he sent the song with that title, I just thought that is everything. That is everything. Even the next record that we did, what is next? Who knows? You don't know until you begin. What's after life? You don't know. What's the end of the universe? We don't know. So it just seemed to be fitting for all of those questions.
Awesome.
But I just think we wanted to follow up Arve with something that surpassed Arve from our performance, from our energy, from our writing. And so we think this is a really good album, and the label loved it. So that's it. We just did. Now it's just to leave it to the fans, really.
Exactly. Now, you mentioned your hip surgery, and I suppose having it with the pandemic at the same time, you didn't get that chance to be frustrated about not being able to play. So that was a good time to do your hip surgery.
No, it's perfect timing. I mean, thankfully for the USA and China for doing that for me, because they really did me a favor, or whoever created the fucking thing. But yeah, I mean, in one way, I was so excited once I had the hip done, because I'd spent 15 years grinding it into pulp.
Wow.
So I wanted to get back out and see how it felt, because I couldn't sleep at night, and the shows were kind of heavy for me, and the traveling. But so I felt vital, but of course I couldn't do a thing. So, but then that was great. You know what? The lockdown, for all of its bad things, the good things were I slowed down on the album. We would have delivered it very early in 2020, and it would have been ready to go. But I kept kind of putting the brakes on, thinking, listen, why are we rushing to do this on a time scale when if we could get it out in, say, February or March 2020, it might be 2 years before we can be on stage again, by which point it's an old album. So I said, let's just take our time. And when we know shows can start to come, that's when we'll accelerate a little bit and push that towards coming out, so that when the album goes, we're going to be out playing. So that's what's amazing. We dropped the first single, and last Sunday we played Hellfest warm-up show in France, and we auditioned the brand new single there. There's another one next month, and we'll do the same thing again. That will be added into the set. So as we creep towards the album dropping, we're going to be putting the new stuff in. So it's quite
exciting. Now, obviously, having that amount of time that you just mentioned with regards to the recording, the writing, I mean, having lots of time, you can kind of overproduce a record and spend too much time on it rather than having those deadlines? Or did it allow you that time to let the recording and editing breathe, to let you to change things? Or how was it, help or a hindrance?
Well, it did. I guess it's more from a production point of view. Myself and Mantis write, but we write in very different ways. He will compose in his studio and go over and kind of comb through it, to get rid of all the chaff, to be left with what he thinks is the wheat. And whereas I'm like, fuck, open the tin, throw it at the wall, look at the best bits, grab them and run out the door. I'm like, I want it to happen. And I suppose that's my kind of, I don't have the same kind of technical patience in the studio, 15 hours trying to get the WAV form right on an EQ on a fucking one note. I'm like, oh my God, I'd rather nail my head to the floor.
Yeah.
It's like, I just want to play it. And what it is, you capture a moment of vitality. You're looking for that moment. You might have to do it 2 or 3 times, but you know when that is the one. And so I moved pretty quick. So you meant that we could produce more songs. Jeff had a whole load in his kit bag. I sat down, and within months we just had like twice as many tracks as we needed. But then we stopped. I just went just stop. We don't want to now keep looking at them and keep changing them and keep trying to polish them. Just leave them as they are. We got them into a mixed state that we liked. We sent them to Nuclear Blast and said, here's the songs, you pick the album, and they selected tracks they liked for the first one.
Cool.
And for the subsequent ones. So we kind of kept it as fresh as we could. And even Mantis in production, he reduced the gains on the bass a bit more, the gains on his guitar. He kind of cleaned it up a bit, and we tried to keep it as you would get it if we were live. Of course, there's some overdubs. You have to do that, but we tried to keep it as punchy, as punky, as real as possibly we could. So in a way, we did use that time, but actually instead of then polishing it into a pyromania type of album, we went the other way. We tried to make it as even more real. Everything we recorded analog to keep that vitality.
That's what I want from a record. That's what I want to hear.
Yeah, you know what I loved, Dan, about albums, in the 70s into the early 80s was whenever I heard, on, if you hear anesthesia, you hear Take One, or on the album, the Raven album, Rock Until You Drop, what the hell we got a gas fire in here for? God only knows. It was the idea that you could hear amps going on, you could hear the clicks, you could hear the sweep of fingers. And I felt that I was as much part of the process as possible, like taking a vinyl out the sleeve. You'd stare at a cover that had all on it the whole time you listen to the album, just because you could smell it and touch it and feel it. And I think that's what fans want. Certainly what I wanted. I wanted to be part of the experience, So I think that's important.
Definitely. Now, looking at your recent promo pictures as well of you guys together, there's some serious hench stuff going on there. Some tensing going on those muscles. Do you guys train together now? You got your hips sorted?
Well, no, unfortunately. Well, Mantis, because Jeff had his heart attack, but he has a little studio in his place in Tomar, and then he has a little workout regime. And of course, he was a martial artist, so he's constantly, it's never been that far. And very fortunate, I have a really hardcore gym around the corner from me, and my boxing gym, which has been closed for 7 months. Well, that was like 5 minutes walk away. So I had both of them right there.
Right. Yeah.
And I think from Jeremy, I think he, Mr. Klingon there, he, whereas Abaddon, his training was desperately trying to open the next bottle of Jack Daniels. Kling is just a work machine that, he does his Inhuman Condition and the Absence. He's a sound guy. So he was out with Dayside and, Exodus. So he's just never sitting at home. So we're all quite fortunate to be fit, really. Active. You
gotta be.
Well, at our age, definitely.
Yeah, of course.
Have to be.
Of course, mate. Of course. Now, if you don't mind, can we go back a little bit in time, some historics, if you will? Now, you were previously in the band Atomcraft, which were quite progressive for the time. Now, tell us how you joined Venom, because I know Kronos left, and you said you weren't trying to replace him. So, what was the situation?
Well, basically, Atomcraft, we'd kind of been together, and we were all from the same little place in Newcastle, Wall's End, where New Records was. So it was all round about that. So we all knew each other. We all kind of started to make music at the same time, and all that movement happened. So we'd always been friends, associated for a long time. And it got to 87, 88. And we did a tour with Nasty Savage. As Atomcraft, we toured behind the Iron Curtain with Nasty Savage and Exuma. And we did a very successful tour. I played a few shows in London and a big long tour. And the tour manager was Abaddon, because at that point he was managing with the Venom manager, my band, and they were doing tour management. So he was on the tour with us. And we were in Poland. We were doing the last show in Poland. And he came to me and he said, "Oh, do you fancy... I might jump up on the kit tonight and close the show." And I said, "You're going to close the show? What the fuck are you going to do?" And he was like, "Well, I was thinking maybe we could do Welcome to Hell or something, because you could sing it, it." And I was like, "Yeah." So I went to see the Polish band Wolfspot. I said, "Look, do you know Welcome to Hell?" And they were, "Yeah." So I ran through it with them. So I took my guitar. I was playing guitar at the time. And that's what we did. We closed the show. When we got back, my singer, that was the singer of Atomcraft, decided he fell in love with a girl. He wanted to move to Leicester. And then the guitarist kind of just decided he didn't want to do heavy metal anymore. So that just left me and the drummer, really. And he was like, "Well, we'll just audition for, you can go back to singing and playing bass. We'll audition for another guitarist." And I just thought, I've been at this since 79. I'm a bit knackered. And I'm still in the same place. We've been overshadowed, and Venom had their boot definitely on our neck while we were at Neat Records. And I thought, I want to take some time out and think about what I actually want to do now. Because that tour had been very successful and we had demos for a new album. So I just thought, fucking hell, it's taken all this time. We've just got to this point and now you're all fucking off. So I took some time out, and I got a phone call one afternoon from Eric Cook, who was the manager of Venom. Said, "Do you fancy meeting me in Abaddon in a pub to have a chat?" So I said, "Yeah." I assumed it was going to be about Atomcraft, what was going on. And when I went to the pub, they started talking about Conrad leaving. He's going to America. He's took the two guitarists. I mean, Calm Before the Storm wasn't the best album. It didn't get very well sold, or the reception wasn't so good. But I think that was because it was like Conrad's first solo album, really, rather than, the old school stuff. And so they said, we need a bass vocalist because Music for Nations want to do 3 albums, a 3-album deal. And so me, like at that start, I'm trying to think of people I know who could do it that I would like to see doing it. Do you know what I mean? So I was thinking, well, he would be a really cool singer. He would be great to see, but, he doesn't play a bass and that's a good bass player, but he's not really a great singer. And I was trying to think, and then, after a couple of pints, they went, "Right, so you're going to do it?" And I was like, "Am I going to, look for someone?" And they went, "No, you daft git." And I was like, "Oh, you want me to do it?" And they were, yeah. You're the only one we can think of. You know us. You know all the material. You can play everything and sing everything. And I was like, "Oh, okay." But literally, I say, Dan, without a word of a lie, I didn't consider that I was replacing Conrad.
No.
I just thought, oh my God, I can get to play with these guys, my friends, play those great songs, even write new ones for an album. So for me, it was a no-brainer. Amcraft had stopped. Conrad wasn't there. I was going to be in a band with my mates who I knew and play those great songs. Yeah. Who wouldn't want to do that?
Of course. Yeah. Now, did you get much flack when you joined? Being one of the most legendary bands, and you joined.
Well, I did. I didn't even think about that. And if there was, of course, there wasn't social media, so it was all through magazines. So yeah, I didn't get anything personally towards me, and the only thing was I was working as a sound guy on a garden festival in Gateshead, and one afternoon I saw Eric and Abaddon walking across the field, and they came up to my sound desk and they went, "Can we have a quick word?" I went, "Yeah." And they went, "We wondered what this was." And they gave me a Kerrang, and I opened the Kerrang to a page where it said Dolan dumps Venom. And I went, "Well, exactly. It's all a thing." Tony Dolan called up the officers and said he didn't realize Venom was satanic and he's worried about his family and all. And I was like, "I don't know what the fuck that is, mate. Sorry." And they went, "Well, it says it's you." And I was like, "Well, it isn't." So I finished work. I went to Neat Records and I called Kerrang, the editor. I can't remember who it was. It might have been Dante, but I don't know. And I just said, like, "What the fucking hell is this?" And they went, "Oh, it was just, well, a guy called up, said it was you." I said, "What? So anybody with a Geordie accent is me?"
Wow.
So it was Conrad. It was Conrad, but never mind. They did a retraction the next week and said, "Oh, Dolan hoax." I was going, fucking hell.
Oh, God.
But other than that, nothing. I thought, oh, well, that's just him bitch slapping or whatever.
Yeah.
But we did the album. The album got fantastic response. I mean, it blew me away. It was like everybody was like, "Oh my God, they've returned." Nobody think it could happen. And then we went out on the first tour, and that was the first time I thought, "Ooh, how is this going to work?" Because we were doing clubs, which is something Venom had never did, because I could do like 50 club dates in a row, but Conrad couldn't. So they didn't do that. But I was kind of the punk element. I was used to it. So we went out, and the first night I was thinking, fucking hell, yeah, we're not that band, and I'm not him, and wondered what the reaction was. And it went fucking nuts. The thing went nuts. As soon as we started playing stuff from Primeval, they went crazy. And then we started to go back through the catalogue. And of course, I was wanting to pull out songs that they didn't do. They didn't do Sons of Satan. They didn't do Red Light Fever or, so I was like, fuck, let's do all those B-sides and stuff, which I'm still doing now, because as a music fan, it's like the obvious songs are the obvious songs. Yeah. Everybody's going to expect Ace of Spades or Overkill or Bomber. But, what about the others? I'll Be Your Sister. What about, Digging Under Dirty Love or, so that's what I did. And the fans just reacted to it. They just loved it. So I came off the first tour just thinking, wow. So I never had any real shit,
That's cool.
I mean, once social media came in, I get it all the time.
Yeah.
Well, I'm too old to care about it.
No, exactly. So when the band split in 1993, did you think that was it? Or in the back of your mind, did you think that was a doorway for the original guys to reform?
No, it was kind of a walkaway situation. Basically, we hadn't toured Temples of Ice, the next album, and we basically were kind of rushed into doing the next one. So we just went with it, but we hadn't made any money. The management company had. I don't need to go into details. They had made money. Yeah. Myself and Mantis had made no money. So as we weren't getting paid, it meant that I had to go back to work in the theatre as a technician, and Mantis went back to his gym and his hospital work. So we were doing that, and so we kind of the final album was done in bits and pieces. We weren't like working as we did in the early days as three people in a studio. I was going, I might see Jeff. I would then go out to work. He might pop in and do his bits and go out. So although we were coming in with songs and stuff, we weren't really sharing at the same time as much as we had been. Yeah. And I think the both of us just got a bit disillusioned. Went, are we getting out of this what we want to get out of it? And I think that it's beyond money, it's beyond fame, it's beyond anything else. When you're creating music, you just enjoy it. And the end result, you hope everybody likes, but they won't all like it. But as long as you like it and you feel you've done something creative. Yeah. So it wasn't about the money because, like I say, we were working, so we could do it. We just thought like, yeah, we're not getting the enjoyment out of it. And I said to Jeff one day, listen, the reason I came in was to save the band in a way, because I want a world where there's a Venom always. And it could be a different name, but as long as it's a Venom, we need a Venom, like a Pistols or a Motorhead. We need it. A Maverick band. And so that's why I was there. And now we had Britpop and grunge. Metal was on the downside. I said, I don't think we should flog a dead horse. I think we should leave it as it is. It's classic and just walk away. And there it will stay. So that's what happened. I moved to London then and went to work for the Royal Shakespeare Company. So we just walked away. There was no argument or discussion. We just went, okay, let's just put a full stop on that.
So the band split, and then Venom got back together with the original lineup, and then then Venom Inc. started a little bit later. Tell me how all that happened, and was there any bad feeling with regards to the name and who's who and what's what, or was it quite respectful?
Well, it wasn't respectful. No, I mean, basically, they got back together because there was a promise of like, oh, you could make $1 million. So they got back together. They did an album that went kind of sideways. They've tried to follow it with Resurrection, and Abaddon got then kicked out, and then Jeff left, and then Conrad continued. So that was a kind of a maelstrom thing. They did it for the money, and then it ended up with Conrad being left, and he just continued on, using the name again as a flag because, it kind of makes an impression. It makes people sit up a bit, and I guess that's how we came to do it. I mean, Jeff called me one day. He played a show in Newcastle for some charity thing for a friend, and his drummer couldn't make the show. So he called Anton, who was Kronos' brother, who had done Metal Black, Resurrection with the three of them. Then he'd done Metal Black in Hell, and then he'd left Venom because arguments with his brother. So he'd left. So he called up Jeff and said, look, you got this show, and I know you don't have a drummer. Do you want me to come down and drum for you? So Jeff was like, sure. So they did that show. And at the end of the show, they played black metal and Mantis sung it. That went up on YouTube, and a few people commented, oh my God, Anton and Mantis back together after Resurrection. Wouldn't it be cool if? And then I got a call, and he said, look, we're just thinking, the three of us, why don't we do an album? So I was like, okay. And so we started, and it was like, what do we call ourselves? Obviously they wanted to go down the Venom route, and I said, well, maybe it should be a title. And then Anton said Primeval. Why don't we call ourselves Primeval? But there was an American band called Primeval. So I messed around with the lettering and came up with Empire of Evil, which everybody fucking hated, but apart from us. But I was just like, it's an anagram, if you're smart enough to figure it out, which people weren't, it doesn't matter. But that's what we are. So we then went out as that. Anton left us. We brought a couple of drummers. We had in Mark Jackson from Acid Rain and Francesco Furella de Rosa from Extrema, from an Italian drummer. And we were kind of poodling along with that. And then I played a show in Newcastle. I was invited to play a retro festival, and they said, would you play as Atomcraft or play Future Warriors, the first album, in full? And normally I would have said no to doing an Atomcraft thing, but I thought, oh, hang on, we never actually played that album in full. We never played all the songs. So I got quite excited. So I got Craig Meyer, who's now with Artillery, and Paul Caffrey, who's with Gamma Bomb, said, you fancy coming to help me out? So we went and played the show in Newcastle, and I got Jeff up on stage. Mantis came and joined me to do a couple of tracks, Pour the Metal In and Heat and Pain. His favorite ones. He said, yeah, I'll do them. That would be great. And there was a guy in the audience who runs the festival called Keep It True in Germany, Oliver Weishammer. And he contacted me like a week later. I said, oh, Tony, my name's Oliver. I do this festival there. It was fucking brilliant to see Atomcraft. Never thought I'd ever hear the album in full. And to see Mantis on stage. Did you know Abaddon was in the audience? I said, no, of course I did. But we weren't talking to him because Jeff wanted to kill him. So I just kept them separated. And I said, no. And he said, well, I was just thinking, if I booked Empire of Evil to come and play my festival, what's the chances if Abaddon was there, you would do 4 or 5 Venom songs just for 2,000 fans, just as a retro thing? And I said, well, why don't you get Kronos? He went, I don't want Kronos. He said, I just don't want him. He said, but if this could happen, I said, well, it would be cool, but it wouldn't happen because they don't talk to each other. The band, they all hate each other. They're always arguing. It doesn't work. And he said, yeah, but you could make this work. So he kind of coaxed me into it. I talked to Abaddon, who said yes straight away because he wasn't doing anything. He was working on a building site, I think, at the time. Mm-hmm. And took me a bit longer to convince Jeff, who eventually conceded, okay, well, he just comes, we play 5 songs, and then he goes away, and we just carry on. So that was the idea. And that was it. We set to go. And my agent at the time said, what are you going to do for merchandise? This is kind of special. I said, no, we'll just sell our Empire stuff. And he said, well, you should do something for that. So I spoke to the guys and said, what do you want to do? They went, let's call it Venom and use the original logo. And I said, well, I don't know. I don't think that's a good idea. Let's do something else. And they said, well, we'll call it Venom and use the Primeval logo. And I said, no. It's not about the logo. It's just about calling it Venom. Because, I said, can we just say it's a retro thing or something? And they insisted that we should do that. So I spoke to my agent and I said, but, we can't have 2 of them. That will cause controversy. And I just don't need that. And we're just doing this as a one-off for some fans. Yeah. So he said, well, how do you see it? I said, well, it's not just about this music. It's about everything. It incorporates all of our music. And he went, there you go. And I was like, what? He said, incorporated. I was like, oh, Venom Incorporated. So meaning we're not the other Venom. We're just, Venom is part of our history singularly and together. So we're incorporating that into everything. Yeah. He said, then where you can use the logo and you're not, it's for a reason. Yeah. So that's what I did. I sent the design to the T-shirt guy, Venom Incorporated. And we turned up with Keep It True, and the shirt said Venom Inc. And I said, well, the shirts all say Venom Inc. He went, yeah, well, Incorporated was too long. I couldn't make it work, so I just put Venom Inc. But it means the same thing. And I was like, okay. And that was it. And we played the show. We had Abaddon on, played 5 numbers, and I came off. And the first person I saw, one of the first people I saw, was Ollie Hahn, who worked for SPV in Germany. And he just went, genius. That was genius. And I was like, what? He said, doing that, changing the name to Venom Inc. He said, genius. And I was like, okay. And I said, well, what was wrong with Empire of Evil? He went, it's your name and it can't sell. He said, but Venom Inc. very good. So that was it. We just, Jeff then kind of had a little bit of a breakdown going, it shouldn't be called Venom anyway. It should be Venom Inc. Iron and Steel. Let's make it a big. But it was a waste of time. And the fans would just go, no, it's this. And we couldn't fight against it in the end of the day. And so that's what it became. It just became Venom Inc.,
So were there any repercussions with the Venom or not?
No, there was the only one we had was we were due to go to South America, and the guy had been obviously putting up the black metal, the most infamous cover. So he's putting up the black metal thing, and using the Venom thing from there. And then they'd had an ink hidden there somewhere that you couldn't see it. And then Jeff got a letter from the legal department at Spine Farm on behalf of America, on behalf of Conrad, just saying a cease and desist to do that. So Jeff just wrote back and went, okay, show me any paperwork, any agreement anywhere where it says this is owned by one person anywhere. Yeah. And we never heard another word because it isn't, of course. No. So, it was, and in respect of that, they'd said about, because I sent them a letter as well, just to say, we do not use the imagery associated. We're not trying to convince everybody we're that band. We're not trying to, we're distinguishing ourselves away from that as being part of it, but distinguishing ourselves away, if anything. And if a promoter in another country decides to use whatever they want for a poster, you have to talk to them. You don't talk to us.
Exactly. Exactly.
So it was, for us, we were like, it was easy,
So another bit of historics, right? The name Demolition Man, right? Where'd that nickname come from? I take it it's got nothing to do with Fred Dibner.
Yeah, well, close enough. Yeah, Fred Dibner, brilliant. Yeah. Well, I was climbing this chimney. Right, we were playing our first gig. Now, it was my guitarist. We were playing. I think it was with Warrior. It was an American band. And then a local band. And I was one afternoon, I was wondering about HMV in Newcastle when one of our tech guys ran in and said, we've got a gig. And I was like, what? Where? When? He said, tonight, we've got to get to wherever it was. And we've got this show, Kettering or something. I was like, oh, fuck. So off we went. And found some gear borrowed from Avenger. And then found a guitarist after several hours and said, right, you got to dump your girl. We've got a gig. He was like, what? So we had this mad panic, got all the way down there, set all our stuff out. And I had Avengers. I had the 2 4x12s with an amp on top, with a Marshall on top. And in those days, when you played in those days, everybody did solos, like there'd be a drum solo and a guitar solo. Yeah. You know, and so that's what we had them, because we were a band and that everybody does solos, even though we didn't know what the fuck we were doing. So it got time for my bass solo, and there was kind of a side table next to the floor where people had been, and there was these 2 guys, and since we'd started, I could just see them out the corner of my eye talking all the way through, and I was really getting pissed off. So when I went to do my bass solo, I ran towards them. And they looked at me, and I jumped up onto their table. But as I did that, my bass went off. And so I turned around and I pulled the fucking cab and the amp and everything was exploding. And everybody ran on trying to unplug me and pick everything up. I was like, oh, not my stuff. So I was like, yeah. And so while we were frantically trying to put this fire out, my guitarist went to the microphone. He went, ladies and gentlemen, the Demolition Man. And that was it. Absolutely brilliant. It's stuck ever since. And everybody who knows me goes, "Fucking hell, don't give it to him. You know, you give me a jar to open, I will smash the jar and still have the lid in my hands." Like that. I'll just, if it can be broken, I'll break it. Not on purpose. So, yeah.
Fantastic story. Now, I can't have you on the show without talking about your acting, right? I know it was what you've done, and I know you're not doing anything much now because you focus on the music, but how did that all happen in a nutshell? Because I know we've only got about 8 minutes left on this Zoom call, which will cut us off.
Oh, okay, yes. Of course, I forget it cuts off. Well, it was all by accident. I was working for the Royal Shakespeare Company, and I was very happy about it because I love Shakespeare. As a technician, I was doing tours with them as a technician, master carpenter, and we were in India. There was a problem with one of the actors. I would take the piss quoting the play all the time, and one of the stage management said, "We need somebody to go in and do this part. There isn't anybody here. Could you go on and do it tonight?" I was like, what? And I hadn't considered it, but I did it. When I returned to London, after doing that, it was just one show. But after doing that, we returned to London. The artistic director came to me and said, "Listen, thank you so much for doing that. And I've got another problem. We have the same thing happening again with the same show. We've now a young Vic." And he said, "I just went into a dressing room today and said, can anybody think of anybody we can call in at the last minute?" And they all shouted your name out. "So you're on." And I was like, what? So I went and did it for 3 nights, 4 shows over 3 nights, because I did the Saturday matinee and stuff. And I said, okay, well, I'll do it for you, but you don't have to pay me. Just teach me how to act. So he then did a series of workshops with me over the next month. And then 2 weeks after we finished that, I had an agent. And a week after I got the agent, I was on the set of Judge Dredd, and that was it. It was just off. So it was all very fortuitous and very accidental. And even when I did Master and Commander in America with Peter Weir, Russell Crowe, I was actually installing We Will Rock You for Queen at the Dominion Theatre with the intention of signing a contract the next day. And my agent called and said, "Can you get up to Park Lane? There's a director wants to meet you." And I was like, oh, okay. So I went up there covered in mud, covered in clot, in my lunch break. And I even said to the director, who I wasn't aware who he was at that stage, I just said, "Listen, I'm really sorry. I got to get back to work, mate. But thanks. It was lovely to meet you." And then when I get back, my agent calls and goes, "How was Peter Weir?" I said, "Yeah, how do I know him?" She went, "He did the Truman Show, Gallipoli, Picnic at the Rock." And I was like, oh, that Peter Weir. Yeah. I was like, I just fucked him off because I had to get back to work. But she said, "Well, he loved you." And that was it. The next minute, I'm standing on a set, talking to Peter Weir and Russell Crowe, discussing how we should play this scene. Wow. I'm like, fucking hell. If people could see me now.
Incredible.
So, yeah, just kind of an accidental tourist, really.
Amazing story. Now, I know we're short of time, but show, tour, festival-wise, what's on the horizon? And, are you saving the tours until the album's out?
No, we got festival season starting now. We did France last week. We're off to Austria for Saturday, headlining a show for Walpurgis Night with Belphegor on the bill. They're invited by them. And then we go to Metallion, 40th years anniversary, the biggest metal magazine in France. We go to Grenoble the week after for that. And we got a whole bunch of Leanders, the rock we're playing. So a lot of festivals coming up. We're trying to plot the EU tour now, and in the fall, just after the album drops in September, we'll be in the US doing the East Coast run. So it's all just happening now. Thankfully, finally. Yeah.
Amazing. Now, finally, you're a kick-ass bass player. I'm a drummer. We are the butt of musician jokes. What's your favorite musician joke?
Oh my God. How can you tell? Well, that's a bit unfair. Why did you have to be a drummer, Dan? How can you tell if the drum rises level?
Go on.
The drummer dribbles out of both sides of his mouth.
Yeah. Classic.
I hope you're going to beat one. Go on, give me one back.
I've got one, mate. I try and avoid them. Listen, Tony, thanks so much for joining on the show. We wait with bated breath for the album and the tours.
Cheers. It's been so nice to do this. And I promise you, that we gave you 3 minutes of a tip of an iceberg. The next single comes out next month, and it's a killer one. And the video was created by Andy Pilkington from Bloodstock and everybody else, and it's an amazing job he's done. So I'm looking forward to you hearing the rest of the stuff, and finally the album drops, and I hope to see you all out on tour. Thank you so much, Dan. That was fucking brilliant. That gave me a good laugh. Thank you so much.